It began on a night when the rain fell like shards of glass, drumming on the rusted tin roofs of the abandoned factory where the boys often gathered. They weren't really friends, more like a pack of restless wolves, bound by boredom and a thirst for dominance. Their leader, a broad-shouldered brute named Jace, had the kind of grin that promised trouble. And when they saw Ethan walking past the chain-link fence, head down, clutching his second-hand backpack, they decided he would be tonight's entertainment. Ethan was different, always had been. He didn't dress like the others, didn't talk like them. He carried himself with a quietness that unsettled the loud. And more than anything, he had that strange mark on his arm, like a faded birthmark shaped almost like a key. Nobody knew where it came from, not even Ethan. His foster parents had told him it was just a scar, something he'd had since he was a baby, but deep inside, Ethan always felt it meant something. He just didn't know what. "Hey, freak," Jace called out, stepping into the street lamp's sickly yellow glow. The others followed, laughter bubbling out of them like smoke. "Where you headed?" "Back to your spaceship." The group erupted in cruel cackles. Ethan tried to walk faster, clutching his bag, but they closed in. Jace shoved him hard against the fence, the metal rattling behind his back. Another boy, Mason, snatched the backpack and tossed it across the wet concrete. Ethan's books scattered, pages soaking in the rain. "Leave me alone," Ethan muttered, his voice barely audible. "What was that?" Jace leaned closer, his breath sour with cigarettes. "Did the aliens say something?" They shoved him again. One of them punched his stomach, another kicked his shin. He doubled over, wheezing, but didn't fight back. That only made them laugh harder. Then Jace swung his fist, cracking against Ethan's lip. Blood trickled down his chin, dripping onto the pavement. And that's when it happened. The moment his blood touched the ground, the earth beneath them trembled. A low hum filled the air, so deep it seemed to vibrate in their bones. The boys froze, confusion replacing laughter. Lines of faint blue light snaked outward from the spot where Ethan's blood had fallen, etching glowing symbols into the wet concrete. The pattern spread like living veins, pulsing with energy, forming a perfect circle beneath Ethan's feet. "What the hell?" Mason whispered, stepping back. The circle flared, and the ground split open with a hiss of steam. Slowly, something began to rise from the darkness below, a metallic structure, smooth and seamless, glowing faintly with the same blue light. It was a cube, about the size of a basketball, hovering just above the surface. Strange symbols shifted across its sides like liquid script, unreadable yet purposeful. The boys stumbled back, wide-eyed, fear replacing their cruelty. Ethan stared at the cube, his chest heaving, rain mingling with blood on his face. The cube hovered closer to him, as if recognizing him. It pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. "What is that thing?" Jace hissed, his bravado faltering. The cube spun once, then stopped directly in front of Ethan. Without thinking, he reached out. The moment his fingers brushed its surface, a surge of warmth rushed through him, and images flooded his mind. Flashes of stars, worlds he'd never seen, battles fought in distant galaxies, and a voice, calm and ancient, whispering, "The air has awakened." Ethan stumbled back, gasping. The cube hovered at his side like a loyal companion. The others didn't move. For the first time, their mocking eyes were filled with fear. "What the hell are you?" Jace breathed. Ethan stammered, still trembling. "I don't know." But deep down he did know. The mark on his arm, the strange dreams he'd had since childhood, the sense of not belonging. It all connected to this moment. This cube wasn't just a machine. It was a key, a weapon, a secret that had been buried beneath their feet for who knew how long, waiting for his blood to wake it. Suddenly, the cube's symbols shifted again, and a beam of light shot skyward, piercing the clouds. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rumbled. Not natural thunder, but something heavier, like engines roaring across the night. The boys scattered, screaming, vanishing into the shadows. Only Jace lingered for a second, eyes locked on Ethan with a mix of fear and hatred, before bolting after the others. Ethan was left alone in the rain, the cube humming softly at his side. He didn't know what he had awakened, but he knew this was only the beginning. That night, sleep didn't come. Ethan sat on his bed, the cube resting on his desk, glowing faintly in the dark. Every now and then, it shifted, symbols rearranging like it was thinking. He tried touching it again, but each time, visions surged into his mind. Vast alien cities, ships tearing through space, and faces of people who looked almost human, but not quite, watching him with solemn eyes. The voice returned too, clearer now. The bloodline endures. The device is yours to guard, but others will come. He didn't understand, not fully, but he understood enough. He was part of something much bigger than himself, something dangerous. The next morning, the world outside seemed unchanged. Kids rushing to school, cars honking, the sun breaking through clouds. But Ethan felt different. He carried the cube in his backpack, wrapped in a sweater. All day, he couldn't concentrate. He felt eyes on him. During lunch, a girl named Lila sat across from him. She was sharp, observant, the kind of person who noticed what others missed. She glanced at his backpack, then at the bruise on his lip. "Rough night?" she asked. Ethan hesitated, then nodded. "Something like that." She leaned closer. "You know those guys who hang out by the factory? They looked spooked this morning, like they'd seen a ghost. Did you do something to them?" Ethan shifted uncomfortably. He wanted to deny it, but something in her eyes told him she wouldn't believe it anyway. Before he could answer, her gaze flicked again to his bag. "Whatever you're hiding, be careful. People in this town talk, and not all of them are friendly." He wanted to ask her what she meant, but the bell rang, and she slipped away. That night, the first ones came. He was in his room, staring at the cube, when his window rattled. At first, he thought it was the wind. Then shadows moved outside, silent, deliberate. Before he could react, the glass shattered, and figures in dark armor slid inside, faces hidden by masks that glowed faintly with red slits. They didn't speak. One reached for the cube. Ethan grabbed it instinctively, and the moment he did, a shock wave burst outward, throwing the intruders across the room. His ears rang as the cube unfolded, parts shifting like clockwork gears until it formed a gauntlet that locked around his arm. Light coursed through it, and for the first time, Ethan felt power, raw, overwhelming power, flowing through his veins. One of the masked intruders lunged again, blade flashing. Without thinking, Ethan raised his arm, and a beam of energy shot from the gauntlet, blasting the attacker into the wall with a sickening crack. The others scrambled back, hesitation breaking their silent precision. Then, just as quickly as they had arrived, they retreated through the window, vanishing into the night. Ethan stood trembling, the gauntlet still glowing, the smell of scorched wood filling his room. He stared at his arm in disbelief. What had he become? The cube whispered again, "They will not stop. Protect the device. Seek the others." "The others," he whispered. The gauntlet pulsed once, then retracted, folding back into its cube form. Ethan sank onto his bed, heart hammering. Somewhere out there, something, or someone, wanted this device. And somehow, he had to stop them. But he wasn't alone anymore. The moment the beam had shot into the sky, others had noticed. Governments, secret organizations, maybe even beings not from Earth. And as the nights passed, Ethan would realize that his blood didn't just unlock the cube. It marked him as the key to a war hidden in plain sight, a war that was only just beginning. The following days blurred into a haze of fear and questions. Ethan skipped school, keeping his curtains drawn, listening for every sound outside. The cube rested on his desk, sometimes humming softly, sometimes silent as stone. He tried ignoring it, pretending life could return to normal, but the bruises on his face and the memory of armored intruders reminded him otherwise. Normal was gone. On the third night, a knock came at his door. He froze, every muscle tensed. It wasn't the front door, it was his bedroom window. Slowly, cautiously, he pulled the curtain aside. Lila was crouched there, her hood pulled up against the rain. When he slid the window open, she climbed in, dripping wet, and looked around with sharp eyes. "They came for you, didn't they?" she asked immediately. Ethan stiffened. "How do you know?" "I saw them," she whispered. "Not the fight. Just men in black vans near your street. And I've seen symbols like those before." She nodded toward the cube, which pulsed faintly as if acknowledging her presence. Ethan's heart pounded. "What do you mean? Where?" She hesitated, then pulled a small notebook from her jacket. Flipping through it, she showed him sketches, circles, lines, strange symbols almost identical to the ones glowing on the cube. "My dad used to draw these." Before he disappeared, Ethan stared at the pages. They weren't random doodles. They were the same markings he'd seen spread across the ground the night the cube awakened. Your dad knew about this? Lila nodded, her jaw tightening. He worked for some research division. He told me once that the world is built on secrets. That under our feet, there are things older than civilization itself. Things waiting to be found, or unlocked. And then one day, he never came home. Ethan felt the air grow colder. What if this device had something to do with it? That's why I'm here, she said. You're not safe. But maybe together, we can figure it out. For the first time in days, Ethan felt something besides fear. He felt hope. The next week was a blur of secrecy. They met in the library after hours, poring through old texts, dusty archives, and half-forgotten legends. Lila's notebook became their map. Piece by piece, they uncovered a hidden story, a story of an ancient war not written in history books. Long before humans walked the earth, a powerful race seeded devices across worlds, each tied to a bloodline capable of awakening them. They called them vault keys. Whoever controlled them could unlock weapons, knowledge, even gateways between stars. The cube wasn't just a weapon. It was one of those keys. And Ethan's bloodline was the lock. The more they learned, the more the cube seemed to respond. One night, it unfolded itself without him touching it, projecting a hologram of a star map across his bedroom. Points of light shimmered, connected by glowing lines, forming a constellation unlike any chart he had ever seen. At the center was Earth. Around it, dozens of others. And at the edge, a symbol pulsed red, like a warning. What does it mean? Ethan whispered. The cube's voice answered in his mind. The collectors are coming. Lila gasped. What the hell are collectors? Before Ethan could answer, the night split with a deafening roar. The ground trembled, and the windows rattled. They rushed outside just in time to see a massive ship streak across the sky, black against the stars, its engines humming with unnatural power. It vanished behind the hills, but the dread it left behind was undeniable. They found us, Lila breathed. Within an hour, the town changed. Strange men patrolled the streets, pretending to be military but carrying weapons that no military had ever shown. People whispered of disappearances, neighbors gone overnight, entire houses emptied. The hunters had come. Ethan and Lila fled before dawn. With only backpacks and the cube, they stole away into the forest beyond the town. The device guided them, glowing faintly when they moved in the right direction, dimming when they strayed. For days, they walked, through rain, mud, and cold, until they stumbled upon an abandoned observatory deep in the mountains. The telescope was shattered, the roof half collapsed, but beneath it was a hidden chamber, lined with carvings identical to those in Lila's notebook. This is what my dad was looking for, Lila whispered. The cube floated from Ethan's hand, hovering toward a pedestal at the center of the chamber. When it settled into place, the entire room lit up, walls shifting, gears grinding as if awakened from centuries of slumber. A holographic figure appeared, tall, cloaked, its face hidden beneath a mask of light. Blood of the air, it intoned. You have unlocked the first vault. The others will seek you. The collectors will hunt you. But you are not alone. Ethan stepped forward, his voice trembling. What am I supposed to do? The figure raised its hand, and suddenly, the chamber walls shimmered, showing visions, other youths across the world, each with marks like his, each carrying a device of their own. Some looked frightened, others looked powerful. All of them were connected. Find them, the figure said. Together, you will stand. Alone, you will fall. The hologram flickered and vanished, leaving only silence. Ethan turned to Lila, breathless. There are others like me. And if we don't reach them first, Lila said grimly, the collectors will. That night, as they camped in the ruins of the observatory, Ethan dreamed. He saw endless skies filled with ships, planets burning, voices crying out. At the heart of it all stood a figure that looked like him, but older, stronger, wielding the cube's power like a god. The figure turned, and in its eyes, Ethan saw something terrifying. The possibility that this wasn't a war between good and evil at all. It was a war for control, and he might be the deciding factor. When he woke, the forest was silent. Too silent. He reached for the cube, but before he could, the ground shook. From the trees emerged the armored intruders, more of them than before, their red visors glowing. At their center stood a tall woman in sleek black armor, her hair silver, her expression calm but cold. "Ethan," she said, her voice smooth as ice. "You've caused us quite a chase." Lila gripped his arm. "Who are you?" The woman smiled faintly. "We are the collectors, and the device you carry doesn't belong to you. It chose me," Ethan said, surprising himself with the steadiness of his voice. Her smile faded. "It chose your bloodline. That is true. But bloodlines are chains, not destinies. You are a child with a weapon you cannot comprehend. Hand it over, and perhaps we'll let you live." The cube pulsed angrily in his hand, as if urging him to resist. He raised it, and it snapped into its gauntlet form, glowing brighter than ever. "I won't give it to you," Ethan said. The collector sighed. "Then you will die." They lunged. Energy bolts lit the night, tearing through trees. Ethan raised his arm, beams of light clashing against theirs, sparks and thunder echoing in the forest. Lila ducked, rolling behind a fallen log, hurling rocks and shouting to distract them. But they were too many. Ethan fought with everything the cube gave him, but with every blast, he grew weaker. The gauntlet was powerful, but it was draining him. Just when it seemed they would be overwhelmed, the ground split with a thunderous crack. From the sky, a second ship descended, not black and ominous like the collectors, but silver, sleek, glowing with blue. It hovered above the treetops, and a ramp extended, lights spilling down. Figures emerged, young, no older than Ethan, each wearing gauntlets of their own. One shouted, "This way." Lila grabbed Ethan, dragging him toward the light. The collectors fired, but the newcomers blocked the blasts, their gauntlets crackling with energy. Ethan stumbled up the ramp, collapsing inside. The ship roared upward, leaving the collectors behind. For a moment, silence filled the cabin. Then one of the youths stepped forward, extending a hand. "You must be Ethan. We've been looking for you." Ethan stared, heart still racing. "Who are you?" The boy smiled faintly. "The same as you, heirs of the vault keys. And if we don't stand together, none of us will survive." The ship shot into the night, stars stretching before them. Ethan clutched the cube, its warmth steady against his palm. The world he had known was gone, but a new one was unfolding, a world of secrets, allies, and enemies beyond imagination. And as the stars streaked by, Ethan realized the cruel laughter of that night, the pain, the blood. It had all been the key to something far greater, something that would change not just his life, but the fate of worlds. They laughed when they hit him, until his blood unlocked the hidden device. But now, no one was laughing.